I'd like to take a look on page 249 at the checkbox example. So we'll go with the checkbox here, and we'll get how many checkboxes? We need 3 checkboxes. Checkbox 2, checkbox 3. The one reason I wanted to do the checkbox example is it's different in the radio button in that a radio button is mutually exclusive, which means you can only select one at a time. For the checkbox, we can select however many we want at a time. So let's make some editorial changes here. For the form, we wanted to change the form name to be checkbox example. Okay, so there we have the form name. We want a label at the top that says select your pizza toppings. So there's our label for the text. We'll say select your pizza toppings. Common problem. Okay, and then for the checkbox 1, we'll change the text of that. Let's see if I can move this over. Change the text of that. Checkbox 1. And we want that to be pepperoni. Okay. And checkbox 2. Whoops. Got this. Checkbox 2, we want it to say cheese. So let's go to the text. Gone too far down. There we go. So we change that to be cheese. And then the third example, we will change to be anchovies. Okay, so there's our example there. Then we need a button which says OK, which causes the action to take place. So the name of the text on the button is OK. So now we have our the format for our application. Okay. And so we want something to happen when we press the button. So the idea here is we could choose more than one topping for our pizza and then select OK. So the OK button is where the action takes place, and by default it's button 1. We could change the name of that label. So here we have some if statements. We have if, and let's see, what do we call pepperoni button? So the text says pepperoni, but what is the name of the button? It is checkbox 1. So by default, that's probably going to be how it is for every one of them. So we'll say if checkbox 1, there we go, is checked, which means we have selected that. So if it's checked, then we want to say message box dot show. Then I'm going to say your order. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is make your order be a string and set that to be equal to the null string to begin with, which means it's empty. And here, if it's checkbox, we're going to say your order equals your order plus pepperoni. Okay, and so that's more than one thing I want to take place here, so we want to do that. Inside begin in pairs. And we're going to do the same thing for 3 times. Now, the question is, can we use an if, else, if, as we did on the radio buttons? The answer to that is we need an if structure because we can allow all 3 buttons to be selected. So the if-else structure would say we only have one thing that is selected. So let's do checkbox 2 And this time we want to add cheese. Okay, and we have one more. So we have if. And again, we want to change the name of our text boxes that are representative of the values stored in those particular values. Okay, and so we're building that. In fact, this message box.show doesn't really need to be in there because we're going to do it one time at the end. So let's remove that. Instead of having duplicate code, let's remove it because it will happen at the end. And there we go here, and we can now take this out and remove those each one. Again, not wrong to have it, but as far as the number of statements efficiency, it's better to leave it off. Okay, and we take this off. All right, we clean this up. So this is an example of a checkbox. Again, a checkbox allows you to be able to select more than one item. Okay, so here we go. I think we're in good shape now. We take this this brace off here. Okay, and let's see what we have when we run this program. Whoops. Here we go. Start. Okay, let me move this over so you can see what's going on here. Still run, but I hid my form. So let's stop and run it again. Okay, here we go. All right, so now we have the options. So we have pepperoni and cheese, and we'll say okay. And it printed what? Pepperoni and cheese. So that's just a simple example of using a checkbox to illustrate how you can choose more than one option.